So it's that time of the game week where we weigh up our transfer options. It's time to look who we should be bringing in, who we should probably be holding, and who we should be selling. So if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and let's get straight into the transfer tips. So let's take a look at the transfers in then. And up top, I've starting off once again with Nick Woltemade. Not much has really changed from previous weeks. He continues to plod along at that 1 goal per game almost. I think that's now 5 in 6 games for him. An incredibly consistent performer, and it just looks like, especially with the type of goal he scored against Brighton, a lovely flick with his feet. He's got a range of goals in his repertoire, and he is that typical number 9, and he's going to be in the right place at the right time. And almost like we used to say many years ago about Peter Crouch, he's a big man, but he has a heck of a silky touch for a big man. Going forward, you've got Fulham next going into this weekend, which I think Fulham aren't playing their best football, so that's actually a pretty good home fixture for Newcastle. After that, you've got a away trip to a struggling West Ham team who got absolutely dominated really on Monday night against Brentford. How that was only 2-0, I do not know. And then they've got Brentford themselves away. So they've got a run of three decent fixtures just before Manchester City, which is at home, by the way. So going forward, he is probably one of my favourite striker options. My other favourite striker option so far is Jean-Philippe Mateta. Obviously, this is off the back of one of the best XGs in FPL history. It was somewhere in the 3.3, 3.5 marker. He should have had 4, let's be honest, in that game. If he didn't miss that winner or that potential winner right at the end of the game, Crystal Palace probably been walk away with 3 points, but it was a great performance nonetheless. Now, I want to caveat with bringing him in. I still like him to, even though he does have Arsenal away, simply because if I could easily bench him. I think bring him in if you can bench him this week and then you've got him ready. Other than that, it's not the worst. No, it's the worst fixture, let's be honest. I wanted to try and sort of make it a bit more viable picking him, but I think if you're willing to put him on your bench and you may be looking to jump ahead before any price rises come in, because I think Jean-Philippe Mateta's price will rise certainly this week or next week considerably. A lot of people will jump on that bandwagon after 3 goals in 1 game. So if you want to do it early, it's fine, especially if you've got a bench option. But other than that, it's difficult to say of any other strikers that I would really want to be bringing in this coming week. Thiago possibly is an option. And obviously all of us in that first striker slot will have Erling Haaland. So if you don't have Erling Haaland, make sure you bring him in. Then if we move on to the midfield, I've got Bukayo Saka in this one. Now, if you're looking maybe to fill that, let's say, a third Arsenal slot, because I would imagine a lot of us have double Arsenal defence, or maybe another attacker like Gyökeres and an Arsenal defender. I think it's really important we have double Arsenal defence. But if you're looking for then an attacker from that Arsenal team, I would certainly be looking at somebody like Bukayo Saka over a Victor Gyökeres. So that's why he's probably pretty much my first choice midfielder to come in this week if you can afford him. And fantastic run of fixtures coming up with Crystal Palace, Burnley, Sunderland, and then a North London derby against Tottenham. I'd really fancy Bukayo Saka, and as we've stated before, he will be on penalties more than likely ahead of Victor Gyökeres. Last game he even got DEFCON points, so he didn't actually get a return in an attacking sense, but he ended up with 7 points because of an incredible run from his defensive contributions in the Fulham game, which surprised me. Next up, then we have Enzo Fernandez. Now this again, another caveat one. If we find out that he's fit and he's playing in midweek or even on the bench in the Champions League, and he's shown signs that he is fit after that international break injury, then we can look to bring him in. Because I think he will be playing in that number 10 role while Cole Palmer's out. And with an already pretty impressive XG per 90 of 0.55, playing in that number 10 role will only help him in that sense. So providing he's fit, I think Enzo Fernandez, especially at 6.7 million, is a real fantastic option. And when you consider the Chelsea fixtures, as you can see there, they're fantastic in the near future. So certainly somebody I'd be looking to jump on. Next up, we've got the defence, and it's Gabriel. Like I said, if you're not already on Arsenal defence, or if you have an Arsenal defender that isn't Gabriel, I think you need to be bringing in Gabriel as the main one. You want Gabriel and then probably Timber. I don't hate David Raya either if you really need a goalkeeper, but the ideal one is Gabriel and Timber. You can't go too wrong with most of the Arsenal attackers because their minutes are looking pretty solid in the Premier League. It's Saliba and Calafiori obviously being the other two. But Gabriel, as you saw with the assist as well, and a goal in midweek yesterday, might I add, his attacking threat is also always there from set pieces. So my number one choice, and even going up to 6.4 million, he is still a fantastic option. Finally, the interesting one, I've got Trevor Chalobah at Chelsea. I think the Chelsea defence is one to be jumping on, especially if you're not looking to bring in one of these premium defenders like a Gabriel. Then Chelsea with Sunderland, Tottenham, Wolves and Burnley up next, I think they're a great defence to be jumping on. Chalobah's my pick of them defenders, just ahead of Reece James. Now, I don't hate the Reece James one. If you fancy Reece James to stay fit, I think that's always been his main worry. If you feel for the next 3-4 game weeks, Reece James will stay fit, his attacking threat is there. But if you want somebody a bit more longer term and somebody that you can really trust and probably put in your team and not really worry about week to week, and then Trevor Chalobah is the one. I think it all just depends on what type of manager you are. If you want to take that risk, or if you just want to play a little bit more safer and go with Trevor Chalobah, who's also got potential for DEFCON, which Reece James doesn't really chip in with them in the same way. So let's look at some players that we should be holding then. And I'm going to start this one off actually with Viktor Gyökeres. Now, I just don't think, if you're looking at that Gyökeres to Saka transfer, I don't completely hate it if you have those spare transfers available. But I mean, if you're looking and maybe you've got some other problem areas in your team, maybe you'd have to take a hit to do it, then for me it's not quite worth it then. And with the fact that Viktor Gyökeres got 2 goals, as lucky as they kind of were, they're the sort of goals that can really spark, sort of light a fire, shall we say, in him going forward. And maybe that form will hopefully transfer into the Premier League. And those of you with Viktor Gyökeres will start to benefit. Now, don't get me wrong. I was looking at Bukayo Saka in and Gyökeres out. I've got the transfers to do this sort of thing, but it certainly made me think after midweek, with him firing again, that maybe he can go into this weekend against Crystal Palace and full of confidence and maybe snatch goals against a Crystal Palace team that has just conceded 3 against Bournemouth as well, might I add. So I think this is a very viable player to hold now, simple as that. On top of that, you've got João Pedro. Now, this one, I've got him in the hold, and he's again a player I own, but I don't completely hate the sell because his underlying numbers are not there. In a game where they scored 3 goals away at a struggling Nottingham Forest, his XG per 90 actually decreased from 0.24 to 0.21, which when you're playing as number 9 for Chelsea in a game like that, your season XG per 90 should be going up, in my opinion. But he just didn't seem like he was there for the chances, which is very worrying. But I have got him in this hold list simply because of those fixtures coming up. I think he's the sort of player maybe we just give that one more week because it is Sunderland at home. You would think he'd have to get and break that barren run pretty soon, in the same way Viktor Gyökeres did in midweek. Heck, you might even see him do it tonight in the Champions League, and we might be sitting here in the same position like I'm saying about Viktor Gyökeres, where he scored now midweek and he can hopefully kick on when it comes into the league at the weekend. That remains to be seen, but for now, I'd like to give him the Sunderland game, if I'm being honest, and then we see from there. Next up, like last week really, I've got Jack Grealish here. This was a sort of area I was really struggling with, and that's players to hold in the midfield. Because I could think of a few I wanted to buy, I could think of a few I wanted to sell, but hold, you know, and you don't you don't really want to bail out and just put somebody like Semenyo in, because obviously we're all going to hold Antoine Semenyo. So I've gone with Jack Grealish. Reason being, he's back from his ineligibility against Manchester City, his parent club. So he will be back in now. So if anybody, and he is quite, let me add, he is quite transferred out on the main screen, on the home screen, on the FPL website. So it is surprising that people lost patience when they knew he was probably going to be out for game week 8 anyway. Going forward, I think he's going to come back in. He's going to get straight back to it on that left wing. Tottenham at home. Tottenham are showing their vulnerabilities a little bit now, so it's a sort of game where Everton can certainly get at. And if you're there with Jack Grealish in your team, I'd be very positive going into that game. On top of that, then I've got Bruno Fernandes. Now, I think this was one that people were probably considering selling him last week before the Liverpool game, and then he's proven exactly what he can do. Continuing an impressive high DEFCON per 90, an impressive XG per 90 as well. And if he'd had scored a couple of those penalties that he's missed earlier in the season, I mean, he'd have a very impressive points haul right now, and he would be a lot higher on people's radars than maybe he is right now. But certainly going into a Brighton game, if this is after the Liverpool game, if that's a sort of result that should be kicking them on, and if Bruno Fernandes can't kick on after a game like that, then I'm not sure he ever will. And Man United as a whole, that goes for, by the way. So I think he's a very, very keen hold, especially after a great performance against Liverpool. Then my two holds here are Marco Senesi. Obviously, now there's a few clean sheets in a row gone missing for Bournemouth, which I get it. It's a bit frustrating. A lot of people brought Senesi in, and they're in that camp now where they're frustrated because the clean sheets aren't there, but the DEFCON's always there. And then as soon as you start sprinkling in some clean sheets in that, even with those tough fixtures coming up for Bournemouth, might I add, Nottingham Forest, Man City, Aston Villa, I feel like I can guarantee he's going to get DEFCON in all those games. And if they could just nick a clean sheet somewhere, you're going to get good returns from Marco Senesi, I think. And then you will want him for after that run as well, might I add. West Ham and Sunderland after that. Trust me, you'll be wanting Marco Senesi then. So even if he's somebody you rotate for those difficult fixtures onto your bench, he is somebody certainly to keep. And then on the flip side, on the other end of that pitch at the weekend, also conceding 3 goals, Mark Gahey with Crystal Palace. Now this is somebody I think we should definitely be keeping as well, because like I said with Jean-Philippe Mateta, once you clear this Arsenal fixture, and if you can rotate him on your bench for this fixture in particular, you've got 3 home games in 4 games after that with Brentford, Brighton. Wolves is the away fixture, which is pretty nice as well, and then Manchester United at home. So with those home fixtures coming up, I'd be more than happy with benching Gay this week, and then you've got him for 4 pretty solid fixtures where Crystal Palace can easily get clean sheets in. So finishing up with the players we should be selling, and in the striker position I've gone with Evan Nielsen. Now a player that should have represented some value at 7 million really, but obviously in and out with injuries, and that being the main reason for getting rid of him. I think now he could be back, maybe not this weekend, the weekend after, but like I've already said with Bournemouth fixtures, you're missing a decent home fixture more than likely against Nottingham Forest this weekend. And then you've got 2 really difficult away fixtures with Manchester City and Aston Villa. So for me, you've got 3 games there where you probably don't want Evan Nielsen at all, and 3 games is more than way too much to be holding on a player, even as sort of middle of the road price as Evan Nielsen. You know, you could easily move on to, if you needed somebody cheaper, you could easily move on to somebody like a Thiago. But I'd probably look to find the money and maybe upgrade to one of the guys I mentioned before. It's only that little bit more to Nick Woltemade. And you know he's going to play, he's fit, and firing on top of that. So Evan Nielsen, definitely a sell for me. After that, we have Richarlison, who I mentioned last week. My prediction was he was going to be a bit of a headache in terms of benching going forward after he's benched in the game just before the international break. And we come to the other side of the international break, and pretty much what I predicted. He was on the bench again. And that's just not what you need from your strikers at the moment. Strikers, we haven't got that many to choose from as it is right now. So having 6.6 million locked up in Richarlison, who you can't guarantee and is going to give you that headache every week, it's not for me. So Richarlison is definitely a sell. Now it's finally time, if you haven't already, obviously a lot of people have, but it's still surprising how owned Mohamed Salah is. But it's certainly time to be getting rid of him now. I've learned while I'm recording this that he has been dropped for the midweek Champions League game in Frankfurt. So that'll be interesting to see how Liverpool set up. That might bode well, or it might be a sign of things to come. I don't know when we obviously cross into the league this weekend and Brentford, but nonetheless, he hasn't performed the level that we know Salah can perform. And forgetting that, for the price tag of a 14.4 million player, probably going to go down this week, he just hasn't had the returns. He hasn't got the underlying numbers there. We've all watched enough of him. He's not passing that eye test either. It's always hard to sell the best FPL player of all time, because you're always worried that, this is the week I sell him, and then this is the week he finds form. That's always in the back of your mind, but I don't think we can think like that anymore, especially when it's not just Salah, it's the Liverpool team that's really struggling. And until we see any signs of improvement from Liverpool as a whole, I don't think we'll see signs of improvement from Salah. So, you know, if you're still holding onto him, sell him, spread the money around the team. Or even if you're one of those ones, sell him and bring in Erling Haaland if you haven't already. I'm sure most people watching this video have already done that though. And then the next one, this is a bit of a double one for me, because I have Reinders, I have Foden, but Reinders is certainly the number one on the chopping block for me. Simply because, I've mentioned this before, he's not defensive enough, and his position isn't defensive enough to pick up those defensive contributions. He doesn't do enough for that. And he also doesn't do enough in the attacking sense. So he's sort of stuck in that little middle ground with Reinders, and everybody got excited about him in the early weeks, but let's be honest, he's sort of settled into that sort of points tallies weekly that I think we should have all expected. I think this was the sort of Reinders, and we can see why he was priced the way he was. He's not an out-and-out goal scorer. He's not even a number 10. He's not going to be chipping in with goals, every other week. And like I say, when you're not getting the DEFCON points on top of that, it's not really viable, especially when there are a few good options in that area. You can actually go out and get like a Caicedo, an out-and-out holding, defensive midfielder who might chip in with the odd goal, but they're almost nailed DEFCON in 3 out of 4 games, say. So I would much rather have my money in something like that at the moment. Let me just put that caveat with Foden. Foden is definitely a sell for me as well because of the price tag. And for both of them, the Man City fixtures aren't good coming up. You know, now they're about to go to Aston Villa away, Bournemouth at home, but then Liverpool at home, who might have found their feet by then, potentially, and then a difficult fixture away at Newcastle. So I don't think it's the time to be sort of forcing Man City players, certainly Man City midfielders anyway, into your team. Then finally, I've got Virgil van Dijk in the defence. This is it's kind of a tough one really, because he's one of those players that does hit DEFCON pretty regularly, and he did at the weekend against Liverpool. But if the clean sheets aren't there, it's hard to justify having £6 million locked into a defender. Obviously, at that price tag, he is the most premium, apart from price rises like Gabriel. He is one of the most premium defenders. And for that, yes, you want DEFCON, but you want some more attacking threat, which we're not really seeing from him either. And you want those clean sheets as well. And he's only offering really one of the three of them. And then obviously the Liverpool form, like I said, with Salah on top of that, makes him a sell for me. Finally, Mickey van der Ven, and like I said, the form is sort of not trending in the right direction for Spurs. The clean sheets aren't there. His points tally as well for the majority of the season, if you just let me search them here, they haven't really been that impressive. I think he had one double-digit haul. That was when he scored the goal against West Ham, and that was a 14-pointer. But if you look at his last game, 0 points. And as we go back, it's 2 points, 2 points, 1 point, that 14-pointer. And then the first 3 games in reverse order, 1 point, and then the 2 6 points with the 2 clean sheets at the start of the season for Spurs when they started really well. So apart from that 14-pointer in game week 4, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games where he won in 6 games he's returned. And I just don't think that's just not good enough really for one of our defenders. That's probably a rotation defender maybe in your teams. I think we can do a lot better than that, especially when you consider, again, he's not a DEFCON monster. He rarely picks them up. If I scroll across here, he's yet to pick them up this season, Van der Ven. So that's not really what we're looking for, especially from a centre-back. If we're picking centre-backs, we want DEFCON. If we're picking the full-backs, we probably want a bit more attacking threat. So for me, Van der Ven, more than reasonable sell. So I really appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. If you did like it, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, or subscribe if you've seen a few of my videos already and you would like to join the community. It would be really appreciated. Help grow the channel, and I can eventually spend more time and get these videos better and better each week. Next video will be my team selection. No chips planned this week after a reasonable bench boost, but still want to stick around and see who actually makes it into the starting 11 this week, because I'm not fully sure yet, but there is probably a lot of transfers coming. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Other than that, I will see you in that video, and have a good day.